technology is always a solution in the crisis. So technology will be really handy. There are multiple areas in which this technology would be adopted. One area is in the conduction of admission tests, the learning space.
For online education to really become mainstream and enroll, millions of students rather than hundreds of thousands of students, we need to have online degrees that are accredited by the various agencies.
My message to all the students and the higher education stakeholders is we need to double our efforts in this time in order to sustain and keep our economy afloat.
In India, we have to look at technology and education 4.0 as actually providing education to the uneducated, people who are not getting quality education.
Education 3.0 was nothing but technology driven. This is now going to be a permanent feature and is now going to figure in all the teaching learning activities of times to come.
Good afternoon, esteemed dignitaries. Welcome to this session and welcome one and all to yet another College Dunia Connect chapter. As we all know, the National Education Policy has been approved by the Union Government and is the talk of the town. Every student as well as educational institute are trying to understand the policy and the impact that it will have on the education in India. Hence, College Dunia Connect brings the stalwart of higher education industry together on one platform, wherein we would want to discuss how the new policy is going to shape the future of the education in India. Education policy has been changed after a 34-year duration, bringing a new era of education in India. There are nearly 20 major changes that have been incorporated, such as higher education institutes shall aim to become multidisciplinary institutions. Bachelor's degree will have multiple exit options, and one of the most crucial changes that the 10+2 structure in school education has been modified to 5+3+3+4, covering ages 3 to 18. These are some of the many changes that will bring a new step in the education industry. So today we have our eminent panelists to help us understand these changes in a better way and let us know the impact of NEP 2020 on the students as well as on the industry itself. So I'd like to welcome all the panelists on this, and to introduce the panelist, Dr. Sunita is here with us. She's the Pro-Chancellor for IES University. Dr. Sunita is an Honorary Secretary of the Infotech Education Society and the founder, Pro-Chancellor of IES University, one of the most reputed and upcoming universities of Central India, working for imparting education in the fields of engineering and technology, management, education, pharmaceutical sciences, agricultural sciences, nursing and paramedical courses, fashion designing, teachers education diploma courses, etc. Catering to the educational needs of the students from nursery to schooling up to PhD level. Welcome to the platform, ma'am. We have got Dr. R.L. Raina with us. He's the Vice Chancellor for J.K. Lakshmipat University, Jaipur. Before taking over as the Vice Chancellor of JKLU, Dr. Raina was professor in IIM Lucknow, where he over and above his core academic assignments contributed immensely to the institution building in areas like planning and development, research and consulting, academic leadership, placements, library, computer center, student and alumni affair, and corporate communication and media relations. Welcome, sir. Then we have Air Vice Marshal P.K. Shrivastava, VSM, Vice Chancellor of Madhyanchal Professional University. Sir has retired from the Air Force after a 35-year of glorious service in November 2018. He's a graduate mechanical engineer, MTech from IIT Kharagpur, an MPhil and PhD in Lean Sigma Management. Before his retirement, he was in charge of all the engineering activities of Central India, starting from Gangotri, Jamnotri to UP, MP, Chhattisgarh and Bihar. In the Air Force, he has held many important appointments. Has been Commandant of Prestige Institute, Air Force Technical College. He has been involved in fighter aeroplane operations. He has participated in operations in Sri Lanka and Kargil. Welcome, sir. We also have Dr. Suresh Chandra Padhe. Sorry. He is the president of Purnima University. Dr. Suresh, a senior academician with administrative and governance experience, has taken over as the president of Purnima University, Jaipur. Dr. Padhe began his academic career as a lecturer, assistant professor in Balaji Group of Institutes at Pune in 98, rising to become a director of the entire institution in 2003 and the director of Balaji Institute of International Business till he joined Purnima University. Last we have Mr. Siddharth Chaturvedi. He is the Executive Vice President of ISET Group of Universities, a dynamic result-oriented entrepreneur who is working passionately in the semi-urban and rural parts of India, bridging the gap in terms of ICT and skills based education and services, so to reduce the inequality and create an inclusive learning environment. Welcome all. So, sir, to begin this session, I would like to ask for your opening remarks.
Thank you so very much, College Dunia, for being thoughtful to take up this very important policy document of the government in a discussion like this. You rightly said it is the point of discussion all across the country. Not only all across the country, but I am seeing people overseas are also interested in how the people are perceiving this policy document. How are the academics addressing issues and concerns that are being talked about by the document? So it's not only national level. It's not only it's not only a national level discussion, it is a global level discussion. Let me tell you at the same time, it is, to me, as you said, it has come after 34 years. Yes, you are right. But the policy is really all-encompassing. It is aiming at living up to the expectations of all stakeholders. It is, to me, a very progressive, visionary document which is well-researched and well-documented. And for the first time, to my mind, this document involved more than 250,000 consultations. Look at the way the document has evolved. And it has also included about 250,000 suggestions, right? And over 1,000 vice chancellors consultations happened. 40,000 colleges were involved in forming up what has come about, right? So to me, an education policy document which has emerged out of such a process is definitely a thought through, inspiring, visionary document. I feel so much positive about the document, right? I have had the opportunity of meeting also the one of the architects of this document in one context or the other. when it was in the draft stage. So whatever pointers that you mentioned are the highlights of the policy document, whether you talk about flexibility, multidisciplinarity, or regulatory mechanism, or its thrust on research. So many areas you highlighted some of them, but it has several such areas which it has developed in details. So I was talking to him, when the policy was in draft stage. So we are really very excited the way the group has worked on it, research, particularly when they referred to me, Vanabhata's those 64 colors, when that becomes a basis for forming up a document, I think it's a visionary document. It takes into view the aspirations of the youth of this country. I'm sure if the document is implemented in letter and spirit, the way the thought process has gone behind the education policy, I'm sure what we are talking about today, a demography of the kind that we have, it's going to really help us reap the benefits of that huge demographic dividend that we are having as a country. If India has to find a place in the global circles, academic circles, where it has to be respected as a credible and visible education system, probably the thought that has gone behind it is attempting towards making it one of the most quality conscious, affordable, inclusive, credible and visible education systems. These are some of my opening remarks talking about the document is visionary. The document is keeping in view the aspirations of the people. The document is all inclusive. The document has dealt with each and every subject in very many greater details. Over to you, Nitin.
Thank you so much, sir, for your remarks.
Thank you very much, College Dunia. You have given me an opportunity to share my views with all the respected panelists. And what Dr. Rana said just now, I fully endorse his views. I think this policy is for the future. You can see the vision of our government. It is synced with what is required to be done in today's world. It has got an industrial support. It is towards the student. It is towards research. And it is linking both your university, your college, and the industry. What is required today, all the young generation, they are looking at us and they want that they should get a good job, they should get employment. Whether this education system, which is going on today, will give them a good job, is it related, whatever they are studying in this college or the university, is this related to what is there in the industry? So this policy is towards that. It is the policy for 21st century. It is really, really good. And with lot of deliberations, I think as Dr. Rana said, that they have taken suggestions from various fields. They have taken suggestions from educational institutions. They have taken suggestions from industries. They have suggestions from various ministries. And after deliberation of all the positive points and negative points, they have come out with this. So this is a complete document. Now, how it is going to be implemented, that we'll have to wait and see. There are many points which we will be discussing here. They are very good points. And since I have spent a very long time in military, the military functioning is that basically we promote innovations. We promote, encourage critical thinking. We encourage our juniors to raise question on us. We give them opportunity to say no to us. The no is not taken as disobedience. No is taken as positive way, and we feel that this is just the expression of this young man. We always encourage the reasoning of everything. And I think this policy is towards that. It's giving opportunities to each and everyone, those who are in the college and university, to think out of the box. Now just think of Sir Isaac Newton. Apple was coming down on the earth. Is it a new thing? Must have been going on for years and years and years. Why only Newton thought that why the apple is coming down? So anything, if you look at in a different way, you become a different person like Sir Isaac Newton. And this policy is towards that. It will give enough opportunity to each and every student to ask questions, raise questions, and to answer that, our faculty members also to be trained. And I'm sure this fast-growing technology, we will be able to train all our faculty members. We will change ourselves, though the change is always resisted, but the change is always welcome also. If you have to grow a right crop, पूरा खेत खोदना पड़ता है. So there is the time. We must accept it. We must accept this change, and let's join hands together and work towards the success of this policy. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarks, sir. Moving forward to Dr. Suresh, can you share your opening remarks, please? Sir, your mic is off. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, College Dunia, for giving this kind of wonderful opportunity for, first of all, be with such a senior and knowledgeable experts. And so I know Dr. Raina, so he is known for his expert advice, not only to this forum, but also to government, and he has worked in IIMs. So it shows his level of knowledge. So I feel it is much more privileged than to talk and to share my views in this forum. So I think this policy definitely is a new thought. New thinking has gone before drafted this policy. They have taken the old Gurukul system where India was considered as guru of the world in terms of education, in terms of philosophy, in terms of multidisciplinary area, where people were given to study their own interest area. After that, in between, when Mughal ruled us or British ruled us, so somehow we changed our pattern from multi-specialization to single specialization. And after that, the development of the science, technology, people were more interested in professional education. So we lost somewhere the arts and the art and arts, liberal arts, everything was lost. Even when we studied, that time, if somebody was studying in arts, means he was considered as a Buddhu, Bekoof and Bekar Admi. Okay, where nobody was accepting him in science college. Without choice, he was studying in arts college. So that was even the thought of the parents, and we have been brought up like this. When we come up to this level, when we started working in industry or started working in the other field, we started knowing the value of liberal arts, science, the other art form, everything, the value of the contribution of there to build the life, we got to know, and that is reflected in our new education policy. They try to focus on the character building. Nowhere in our education system till now, what I have known, the character building was not focused. They have talked about ethical, they have talked about constitutional values. That was not reflected, and they tried to bring this constitutional value and the intellectual curiosity, scientific temper, all these things they are trying to build in this this education policy, as well as they are giving much focus to creativity. They are much focused to this spirit of service. So they have given by studying multidiscipline and giving weightage to all the disciplines in the equal manner. As well as they talk about it should be the joy as well as the opportunity, because they are trying to remove the exam related pressure, exam syndrome. They are trying to evaluate a person based on his creativity, idea, discussion, debate. So all these things. So they talk about the personal accomplishment, they talk about personal enlightenment. So all this, what they are trying to do actually, they are trying to move from the single specialization to they are trying to make it multidisciplinary. Even they are trying to introduce multidisciplinary from the graduation level, and research they are trying to focus. I will bring to a point today. In 1 million population of India, we have only 212 people who are the research person. But if I compare with China, in a 1 million people, there are 1200 people are doing research, or they are in the research field. But if I compare with the US, for 1 million population, there are 4,300 people are doing research. But if I compare South Korea, there are 7,100 people are doing research if I compare with 1 million population. So the research, I am not talking about the research. The research means the quality of education, the focus on quality education, the research-oriented education. If the numbers are high, means the value and the quality of education is high. Besides that research part, they have taken that national research that fund, one agency they are creating. And I believe, if I am not wrong, there are 14 or 15 regulators to regulate the higher education system today, whether it is medical, whether it is law, whether it is architecture, whether it is hotel management. So they try to make it one regulator with light and tight regulation, which is one of the wonderful thing I can say. Baki others are the consultant. Today, if I see, I am running a architecture college here, AICT will say some rule, architect, that the Council of Architecture may not like it. They may think, no, their regulation should supersede the AICT regulation, so they will go to the court and make a stay. So this cabinet has given a lot of opportunity for a single regulator. They have given emphasis to high quality governing board. The governing board, they are making it accountable for the development of the university. How it will work, implementation, it is a different thing, but at least the thought has gone to their mind. So that, it is a meaningful, satisfying, live and work enable economic independence way it has been made. So I think it is one of the wonderful documents. After 34 years it has been made. They think all the problems of our education system which has been going on, from a single specialization to no research to mug up to rote learning, to make it their multidiscipline, from single to multidiscipline, giving focus on all the 64 arts, giving focus on all kind of exam fever, removing the exam fever. So all this has made students' life and the society life more enjoyable.
Thank you for your remarks, sir. Thank you so much. Quickly, Siddharth sir, can you share your views?
Yes, so thank you so much, College Dunia, for organizing this, and this is very timely. And as you rightly said, everybody is looking forward to having more and more discussions and deliberations around the NEP. I would like to say that for everybody in the education system, it does fill us with a sense of optimism, and I should also say with a sense of pride that even though after a little, it arrived a little late, considering 74 years of independence, and we made major changes only twice, in 1968 and 1986. Now we have a policy document which is bold, which is comprehensive, which is making all the right kind of policies and notes, which is aiming at not just tinkering around, but broad-based, structural, large-scale transformations across the value chain, right from early childhood care to school education to higher education, continuing to skills. So I would say it is a very ambitious policy document, but it is also progressive in its own sense. There are many takeaways, and personally also there are many takeaways for me. I can come to that later. But I would just like to, to have the right, spirit, right sense of what this policy is about. I would like to quote two things. One, it aims at making India a global knowledge superpower. And if we have to actually, meet our target of 5 trillion economy, or being the number 2 or being number 1 in the world, knowledge superpower is one, which will take you there and nothing else. So recognizing education and knowledge as the core drivers of the economy, this policy document hits the right chord. And second thing, which personally I really like, is that it aims at instilling a deep-rooted pride in being Indian, and not only just in thought but in spirit, and taking pride in our in our traditional knowledge, traditional way of teaching and learning. Also, there are many references to Lok Vidya and so on there. So this also recognizes that the way other knowledge superpowers have taken their own traditional way of scientific thinking and built their education system on that, we are now at a stage where we also acquire our own flavor of education and teaching learning, shed the flavor which was imposed on us for the last so many years, and then look at reaching to the next level of becoming a global superpower, having this policy as the roadmap. Having said that, I just quoting from today morning's conclave, which was done by MHRD, and it was said that it is a wonderful document on paper, or the wonderful plan on paper, but now everybody's eyes are on implementation. More so, education being a concurrent subject, where states have a a big role to play. Everybody will be now waiting to see how this gets implemented, how this gets adopted by cabinet first, and how this finds a roadmap from state to state. Are we able to follow it in spirit, or are we going to let go of?
I think there's a connection issue. Dr. Sumita,
of this wonderful opportunity.
I think there's a connection issue from Mr. Siddharth. So, Dr. Sunita, can we quickly have your opening remarks, please?
Sure, sir. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the College Dunia. I can talk about some principles of this NAP 2020 in which these can be get. So my is like that. This first point is that these NAP 2020 is made for the respect for diversity and local context. So and the second is equity and inclusion. Community participation is the third one, I think, and the use of technology is fourth. Fifth point is emphasize conceptual understanding. Sixth is unique capabilities. Then critical thinking and creativity continues, and the last point is the continuous review. I think these are the 8 principles in which this NAP 2020 is making. So, and it's my view is that it's really very good point for this one. Then when we talk about this respect for diversity and local content, learning local regional language, it helps connect with locals. I think our helpers, our senior citizens, they will definitely adding their experience in this education. Then use of stories, we can say that culture experience with which students can relate to rather than content from far away of the countries also. Then diversity can also bring variety. It can increase the interest and build respect for the culture and bridge the socio-economic gap, which we are lacking nowadays in our education policy. Now we can take the second point, equity and inclusion. So we need to follow in theory and practice that India is socialist and secular. So every student needs to feel free, whether it should be a boy, girl, rich, poor. We can talk about the physically handicapped. We can talk about our fit. Everybody, I think, require that. So when they are taught to believe this from their formative years throughout the educational phase of their lives, they will follow it as a working citizens of the land. Definitely, it will help our future also. Now we can take our third point, community participation. So already we have seen that Swachh Bharat Abhiyan succeeded due participation of our masses. Awareness and self-help, social service and responsibility for ease, speech and action, vision for a future with concern for environment through for future generation, it will definitely succeed without paying any cost. And it is I think it's a great demand nowadays. Now we can talk about key use of technology. I think this pandemic taught us its importance overnight. So we have to be accept now that every profession will involve adequate technical skills. I think it is currently अगर हम बात करें आज की तो it's a highly demandable nowadays technical skills की अगर हम बात करते हैं तो. So technology is an able assistant. It can overcome several changes of distance, time zones. अगर हम बात करें data management की, anything we can talk about that. It reduces time of responses and also in communication, saves travel time, overhead expenses like infrastructure, additional workforce, helping staff, etc. A lot of things are there. Now, fifth point, when we talk about the emphasize conceptual understanding, then days of अगर हम बात करें, that is rectification की जो भी हम बात कर रहे थे, the days of rote learning are now over, and I think it requires for maybe what I feel personally that it required for the parents also. When we nowadays कि हम जब देख रहे हैं कि बच्चे 99% में भी parents are demanding कि why 99.9 or 100% क्यों नहीं आए, so I think it's a very good thing. Understanding and application of concept must be emphasized. Collaboration of industry and education is now a must to make students work ready. That is really required. Now we can come to the point of unique capabilities. So regular routine work when done differently can achieve definitely outstanding results. Individual talent and skill of students must be brought out and it will be appreciated. So hard and fast age-old system pattern in teaching learning needs to undergo a revamp with an open-minded approach. Now, seventh our point is critical thinking and creativity. So repetition of same pattern and content cannot get different outcomes. Critical thinking is overcoming bias, being training for necessary skills, hands-on learning, finding solutions to existing issues and learning to face real life challenges, then continuous review. Then change is the only constant in life. Evaluation of existing system decides their validity and utility. So developing new strategy based on analysis is a must for growth. So I think these are the 8 principles जिसमें ये this new education policy has made. But like that कि सिद्धार्थ is saying कि हाँ policies बहुत अच्छी बन गई हैं. Now it's time to change, see the how it could be implementation. कि implementation होना कैसे कितना है. I think it would be necessary. तो I think 3 और 4 चीजों पे शायद मुझे लगता है कि ध्यान देना भी और जरूरी है कि जैसे अगर हम बात करें टीचर्स ट्रेनिंग बहुत अच्छा हो गया कि BSc B.Ed इज अ 4 ईयर, तो डेफिनेटली हमें चेंजेस दिखेंगे टीचर्स के उसमें. बट ना हमारा ध्यान जाना इस चीज पे बहुत जरूरी है कि दोस आर एक्सिस्टिंग टीचर्स जो ऑलरेडी इसमें हैं, जिनको 5, 6, 7, 8 ईयर्स हो गया है, उनके लिए भी हमें लगता है कि उनकी ट्रेनिंग पे ध्यान देना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है. क्योंकि अगर उन्होंने BSc B.Ed करके नहीं आए या फिर उनकी ट्रेनिंग तो नेक्स्ट अगर ये सारे चेंजेस हम ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन की बात करते हैं तो आई थिंक इट विल टेक अ लॉन्ग टाइम. तो टाइम बिंग जो हमारे पास ऑलरेडी असिस्टिंग टीचर्स हैं जो एक बहुत लार्ज नंबर में है, उनकी ट्रेनिंग का भी ध्यान रखना मुझे लगता है बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है. अदरवाइज ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन इतनी जल्दी होना मुश्किल है. एंड व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट दिस कि हाँ अगर हम हायर एजुकेशन की बात करें तो जैसे एक्रेडिटेशन अगर इन्होंने सेव कर लिया है एक सेम प्लेटफॉर्म पे तो दैट वाज रियली गुड. बट आर पॉइंट इज दैट कि एक्रेडिटेशन के भी कुछ एक रूल्स मेरे ख्याल से थोड़े से कहीं ना कहीं इनको लिटिल बिट लीनियंट होना पड़ेगा. अभी अगर हम एक्रेडिटेशन अगर बात करते हैं तो ओनली 5% कॉलेजेस आर एग्रीडेटेड एंड द मेन रीजन इज दैट कि जो वो डिमांड है उनकी कि आइदर टीचर्स आर नेट क्वालिफाइड और आइदर टीचर्स आर PhD. अगर हम प्रैक्टिकली देखें तो बहुत कम टीचर्स जो हैं वो जो PhD कर पाते हैं ये चीजें. तो मुझे लगता है इस नॉर्म्स में भी लिटिल बिट थोड़े से चेंजेस होंगे तो मोस्ट ऑफ द कॉलेज गॉट एग्रीडेटेड और एग्रीडेशन का में चीजें इतनी अच्छी लाइन अप हो जाती हैं, एक सिस्टम बन जाता है तो डेफिनेटली इट वुड हेल्प द स्टूडेंट्स. हमें ये देखना है कि कितना इम्पोर्टेंट
for your remarks, ma'am. Thank you so much. We are a little short on time, so we'll quickly jump into the questions which are arising. Dr. Raina, I'd like your opinion on this. That world's top 100 foreign universities will be facilitated to operate in India. What do you think about our universities going abroad and they're coming to India?
Nitin, before I respond to this very important question, all the panelists, I'm sure one after the other said everything is nice, but it hinges down to its implementation aspect, right? Everybody was talking about it. So I was just talking about it. Since this policy is out and discussions and debates are happening all over the country at various levels and platforms, UGC, Ministry of Education now, anywhere and everywhere this is, and each and every person engaged at the helm of affairs in education is in sync with what the policy is talking about. So if we as educators who are in the business of making sure this policy is implemented, if we are in letter and spirit, in thought and action, in sync with what the policy is, and we are the people who are the doers. Policy is a document, policy is a framework, policy is a guideline. If we agree that this is the right thing for the country, if it has to earn its space in education landscape of the globe, then it should not be a difficulty. Yes, I agree. There are some points raised that education being a concurrent list, there will have to have consensus on certain issues from the state and center. I agree. But political things and political strategies apart, if we, the doers and implementers of this policy, are in sync, it should not be any problem. As Sunita was saying, many of the things, we have to take cues and clues from the policy and get them put in place. When education policy is talking about flexibility or interdisciplinariness or liberal space inclusion, all of that can happen if we are okay with that. What is there that we need to come from others? So this has acted as an accelerator. Now, coming back specifically to your question about how about our universities going abroad. See, the basic point is how can we bring in and build on the element of quality in our education. That's the basic purpose, right? It is not anybody and everybody will go abroad, or it is not anybody and everybody from abroad will come here. It's a thoughtful approach to it. Those who have excelled and have demonstrated their excellence on quality parameters will definitely go abroad. Similarly, those people who have demonstrated as are the top 100 universities, they will come. So this will increase the spirit of competition. People who are yet to come up on expected lines will do everything possible to fix their nuts and bolts. So surely, if we are as an educational institution, in terms of three things, conscious of quality, which is the course curriculum, if our course curriculum is contemporary, state of the art, and is designed by people for whom we are producing this youth of the country, if the pedagogy or the delivery mechanism is in global standards, if the assessment and evaluation mechanisms are there, which are globally under the best practices, yes, the institution will go abroad and excel. But they will excel.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your thoughts, sir. Quickly, Srivastava sir, how important do you think is the balance between the local and global context as recommended by the policy? Focus on languages, arts, local cultures, and building global competence. Quickly, your thoughts, sir.
It's not very clear. Can you repeat the question?
I was asking, sir, how important is the balance between the local and the global context as recommended by the policy? The focus on languages, arts, local cultures, and building a global competence. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
Okay, first of all, what Dr. Rana said, there should not be any doubt in anybody's mind that this policy cannot be implemented. It will be implemented. Whatever difficulties comes, we are all there. What for we are sitting here otherwise? We will just see that no difficulty comes in our way and we implement this policy the way it has been issued. Now let's start from the beginning. There is a document called National Doctrine. For many years, many policies were issued, but they were not syncing with the National Doctrine. I am really happy that this time this policy is synced with our National Doctrine. The emphasis on self-reliance, and this policy is going towards it. Now coming to your question that how the local language is going to influence, is it the question? Because slight distortion in audio.
So the focus on local languages, local cultures and arts and building a global competence, how will the incorporation be done? How important is this? A balance between...
Okay, I think learning has got no language barrier. If you want to learn, you can learn in Sanskrit. If you have ability to learn in English, you can learn in English. But definitely, learning becomes easy at a very lower level when it is taught in a local language. But it has got no barrier when you grow up, when you go to higher education. The language does not matter, whether it is local language or it is English. But however, having been said this, if you have to go in competition globally, then there has to be a language which is spoken almost everywhere. So there it comes, the language of English. In a higher education, we have to accept this, that language which is spoken and used globally, we have to promote that language. Here, the local language will be a negative point for teaching. At a school level, yes, we have all, like I have been throughout in Hindi speaking area, and I was taught in Hindi. But at higher education, it is my opinion that the language which is acceptable abroad, acceptable by everyone, that language should be taken as a language for the higher education. If you are being taught in a local language at a school level, yes, the connectivity to the teacher, the ease of teacher, the facilities at the school, and maybe especially in rural areas, it will definitely be a helping hand to understand the subject. But at higher education,
quickly going to Siddharth sir for his opinion on the same. Siddharth sir, can you share your opinion on the balance between local languages, local cultures?
Yes, so I have 2 points there. The focus on local languages, that comes from right from the school segment, and the provision, that's one of the significant provisions of the NEP. The mode of teaching until grade 5th to be the local mode of that state, local language of that state. So imagine now the students, bulk of the students would be able to learn in the same language which is getting spoken in their house. So this is a major change which the policy attempts, and that is a step in inclusivity in the right direction, that majority of the students who were not comfortable with English will now have a chance to receive the mode of instruction in their local language. So that is one. The second thing is the National Institute on Research of Pali and Sanskrit, which has been also proposed. That aims at having research accelerated on the ancient and traditional knowledge repository of India. And probably now we will have much wider access of those, literature, which probably we were not able to get to the wider audience. And third point, there is a significant point on creating e-contents in regional languages. So the document says that beyond Hindi and English, at the first phase, there are 8 regional languages which are being chosen. And there will be a national, I think the NETF might take this project, the National Education Technology Foundation. And the aim of having e-contents in 8 regional languages is also to have the higher education segment and courses available in the local languages. So we see that overall basis, right from school education to higher education, and even in research, the portion and the emphasis on traditional knowledge and the local and regional languages is very much there. It can't be omitted. So that is a step in the right direction, and I think it is a step to have better inclusivity of the learners.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Quickly, Dr. Suresh, will these changes encourage students towards an entrepreneurial career? What are your thoughts on that? I think we are having it. So your mic is off. Quickly, then we'll move on to Dr. Sunita. Can we have your opinion on how will an increased focus on research help colleges, students, and universities?
Sir, will you please repeat the question?
I was asking, how do you think that an increased focus on research help colleges, students, and the industry?
Yeah, definitely, sir. When we can talk about the school education, because nowadays it is lacking in school education, the research focus on the practicals and all. Earlier, just when I told you about that, parents are also focused on the percentage. Now, parents and students of school can also understand what is the importance of innovation, critical thinking, practical, and definitely the research. These all can create an interest in the students, as well as they will get the support from the parents. And definitely, I think when we can talk about in the higher education, especially when we talk about the PhD and in master's degree, nowadays we can pressurize the students. You can do a research because it's a part of a curriculum. Now I think students can create an interest in this, and definitely they will do in a different colors. They'll come in a different colors, I think so. So it's really a very good part.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Suresh, my question was, how do you see the students accepting entrepreneurship as a career because a result of these new changes?
Okay. See, in this policy, even the flexible coming, going, entering, graduation, after 1 year you can go do work, come back again. See, till now what happened, in 3 years either you have to complete graduation, or the maximum you can complete by 6 years. Otherwise, the issues were big. So, in India particularly, the education system is like this. They have to complete entire post-graduation, then they will go for job. Or even some point of time, some students even complete PhD, then they go for job. But today, by allowing them to even go after first year, after second year, generally you allow them to go either for job or to do something or try something. So that is one flexibility or one authority or one tool they have given to the students. Second, from after 6th or 8th standard, they have started the vocational education. And they are bringing vocational education at par with the normal other professional graduation courses. Generally in India, vocational education is not taking that part is only because in social recognition is not there for the vocational education. That's why it is not very much appreciated. By bringing, even they are talking about in the normal professional education, so the vocational education will also be a part of the course and is given the equal weightage. By giving that, they are trying to take that dignity of labor. They are trying to give importance to vocational education, which will definitely create more kind of liking entrepreneurs if they give the dignity of labor. So I believe by this education, by this kind of flexibility, by this kind of interest-based education, or no marks-based education, and the second part they are talking about, if they want to take this 26% of GR to 50% GR in few years, it means more and more people will come to the education, or the formal education system will be more through online, offline mode. So definitely more people will be educated, more entrepreneurs will be created. Then only we are thinking about now the people are coming, and only we will go into the job. So that is my opinion.
Dr. Roshan, quickly coming to you, question has arisen that which particular courses will become popular going in the future? Which particular streams will become popular?
Again, I would connect this question with what Dr. Suresh said. The policy itself is all inclusive to help a student, help the youth of this country to pursue the passion that he is passionate about. It is all student centric, student focused, student driven. Whatever the student wants to excel in, whatever the student is passionate in, the ecosystem is created such that he will get that opportunity to go into it. It is not this course is important or that course is important. Gone are those days. It is what satisfies you, what you will be passionate about. That is why they say even engineering students may be looking for courses to develop the perspective, to develop that holistic vision, to go to courses in music, to go to courses in fine arts or other areas. It is not to my mind that this course will be the most sought after. Yes, over and above core domain areas, what would assume more significance and criticality is these life skill courses. Some of them are communication, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making. That is on one side. Similarly, the youth of today would be very much interested to know what the technology is unfolding itself in days to come. So they may start looking at understanding what are those upcoming new, trendy, open technologies. People have started understanding AI. People have started looking at machine learning, may not as experts in those areas, but what is their application? So those cutting edge, new age, technology based courses will be sought after as an add-on to supplement and complement what they are pursuing as their main domain, main core area. Over and above these courses, which are life skill courses, because the aim of this policy is to churn out from this nation the youth which are complete, which are holistic, which are integrated. Yes, no compromise on domain, but it is not just the domain that will help a student to excel. It is these areas. And I won't put my finger that this is one course which will be the kind of course which will find, no, anything. This is all student centric. That's my take on it.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to another question that we have. Will this increase in investment in terms of the state and central government bodies increasing their investment in the education sector in the long run? What sort of investment increase do you expect, Mr. Siddharth?
Yes, so at one level, it does say very clearly that the long-standing demand of the education sector that 6% of GDP should be invested in education. So the policy states that the aim is to take it to 6%, and hopefully that will be replicated across all the states also in the state budget. So a top-down clarity of increase in investment is already there. Apart from this, there are also multiple places. For example, setting up of a multidisciplinary public university at each district, the MERU concept which is there, that will entail significant investment if we really have to cover the entire geography. The third thing is having 3.5 crore additional seats added to the education system to take the GER up to 50%. So currently we have 3.75 crore students in the higher education sector. We are talking about doubling, this in the next up till 2035. So that is the third, place where we can see investment as going up. Apart from this, the digital, there will be a lot of direct and indirect implication on investment going in upgrading of digital and technical infrastructure, technology infrastructure, right at the central level, at the state government level, and at the institutional level. So, whereas we talk about developing of e-contents, we talk about developing MOOCs of our own. We are already seeing a significant increase of Diksha and PM E-Vidya scheme and so on. So we can foresee a lot of investment going on upgrading of technology infrastructure also in future. And the fourth, this was fourth. The fifth thing is investments on teacher training from the school segment and to the higher education segment. Both the segments talk about getting teacher training focus back into the forefront. So investments on teacher training, a lot of FDP programs for universities, and all these investments going in improving the quality so that overall percentage of accredited institutions of and institutions who can stand at the global level in terms of ranking, that is the overall vision. So these 5-6 key areas will definitely see increase in investment in the coming times.
Vice Marshal, sir, your final thoughts on how easy will it be to implement the new policy versus the old one? Your final remarks, sir.
See, any policy, when it is being prepared, all these points are discussed or deliberated. Now, the state government will come out with their implementation policies, and I don't see any problem in implementation of this policy. See, if I use a term called the talent waste or education waste, this has been taken care in this policy. See, in a conventional policy, we have ITI, which is giving training to people, those who pick up a job, is skill-based. Then we come to the polytechnic, we have supervisors produced from polytechnics, and then we have a graduation, post-graduation course where managers and engineers, they are trained. So all three levels, they are all needed in this society. The labor is required, the supervisors are required, the planners, engineers, managers, they are also required, and they have got a peculiar job to be performed. And this policy is giving enough and equal opportunity to each and everyone. Suppose by any reason, if you are not able to complete your PG, your UG, after 1 year, if in case of you have to leave, your knowledge, your education is not waste. You are getting something. You are getting a certificate, and that certificate will be used for your employment.
Rightly said, sir. Rightly put that it requires a lot of efforts from not only the administrators, not only the policymakers, but from each one of us being a part of the education industry to implement the policy in letter and spirit. Thank you so much, all the dignitaries, for being a part of this session. Dr. Raina, Dr. Sunita, Dr. Suresh, Siddharth sir, and Srivastava sir. Thank you so much for being a part of this session. What a lovely interaction, and I guess you have addressed a lot of questions, burning questions in the minds of new aspirants. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.